So you want to reduce your lawn. Maybe you have something like this. And here's another angle. Maybe you have a couple flowers, maybe you have a couple shrubs, and the rest is just lawn. Well, in this video, I want to discuss ways you can convert your lawn to a garden. But most importantly, I'm going to discuss ways to reduce your lawn and reasons you might want to reduce your lawn. So let's get started. I'll start with the reasons that you might want to reduce your lawn. Less mowing. That's right, less mowing. How many of us actually like to mow? Yeah, not very many. At least not very many people I know like to mow. And with less mowing comes less gas if it's a gas-powered mower. So better for the environment, less pollution, less mowing, less work. Another reason that you might want to reduce your lawn is you want more garden space. This may be a garden space for you to grow your own food, or it might be a garden space to grow native plants for our butterflies and our bees and our birds. Or it might be garden space for you to just come outside, relax in peace, and enjoy the beauty and the serenity of your garden. Maybe you want to do both. Maybe you want to grow food and you want to have more pollinators, because pollinators are great for a food forest and they're great for a vegetable garden. Maybe you grow a little bit now, but you want to grow more. Maybe you want to grow more flowers or more food than you already do now. Or maybe you have nothing yet and you have just all lawn. Maybe you want to provide wildlife habitat in general, not just for the butterflies and the bees, but also for the chipmunks, the squirrels, the birds, and all the other critters. There's a whole ecosystem out there to provide for. And another great reason to reduce your lawn and install trees, shrubs, and perennials and such is to sequester carbon and to help the environment that way. So as you can see, there are so many good reasons to reduce your lawn. So why not go ahead and get started today? Again, you can start small, so no biggie. So I'm just going to discuss my favorite ways to reduce the lawn. There are other ways to do it, but I prefer not using any herbicides. Even a lot of native plant people will tell you that it's okay to just use herbicides to get started. I personally try to avoid herbicides as much as humanly possible. And if you think that you can just make a homemade weed killer out of vinegar, and even that really potent vinegar that you get for garden use, and soap and all of that stuff, it's not a good idea, because these ingredients are bad for small mammals and other creatures that live in your garden. So it's really better not to spray if you can help it. Of course, I'm not a purist, so I'm not going to sit here and say never ever spray anything ever, but I try my best to do anything else I can before reverting to any spray. I haven't sprayed in years. I used to spray because I didn't know the harms that it can cause. There are some studies out there that say herbicides are also bad for bees and not just pesticides. So I'm not an expert, so you might want to dig into that material yourselves on the internet and just try and do that research for yourselves. I'm trying to play it very cautious here and only use any kind of sprays in the most emergency of circumstances. And so far, I've been able to not use them for several years. And I can get into how I deal with paper wasps in another video if you like. I have ways that I can live in harmony with paper wasps. And it's great. It's actually fun to watch them if you have the ability to watch them up close without endangering yourself or your family. It is wonderful, and there's lots of ways to live in harmony with them without spraying any pesticides and at the same time being able to enjoy your outdoor space safely. So I can discuss that in another video if you guys would like. But let's get started. So since I don't use herbicides, obviously there's only these other ways that you can reduce your lawn without those sprays. But there are still several ways, and I'm not covering them all here because there's actually a lot of ways and I don't know them all, so I'm just going to cover the ones that I know of the best. The first way that I like the best is layering cardboard, compost, and mulch. And this isn't just throwing cardboard down, throwing compost down, throwing mulch down, and calling it a day. No. There's a method. So first, you either put down compost or cardboard. Because there's actually a few different ways to do this. You can do a layer of compost, then cardboard, then compost, then mulch. Or you can do just cardboard, compost, and then mulch. Of course, there's other layering methods than that, but those are the main ones I know about. But no matter what you do and which order you do that in there, you have to wet those first couple layers. So you've got to wet the cardboard if it's your bottom layer. If compost is your bottom layer, you got to wet the compost at the bottom and the cardboard right above that, at the very least. It's actually best if you wet each layer, especially if you're trying to smother your lawn and just start from scratch, and you have no plants yet that you're working around. But either way, works pretty well, and I highly recommend that you do this process either in fall or spring. That's usually the time that I do it, is fall or spring. But of course, you could probably do this any time of year and it'd be fine. But you kind of want to do it when you can prep for the next season to germinate seeds. So, for example, let's say I want to germinate seeds in the spring. I want that bed to rot down over several months in time for spring, so that come springtime, I can sow my seeds, and those seeds will germinate. Now, it can be tricky if you don't use enough layers above the cardboard, because keep in mind, the whole point of the cardboard is a barrier so that roots can't grow, and so that things can't pop up through the cardboard. So the same thing works in reverse. If you plant seeds on top of that cardboard and your layer above the cardboard is really short, the seeds can't germinate because they don't have enough space for their roots to grow. So keep in mind, you've got to put more on top of that cardboard than you think you need, because there needs to be room for the roots, and things break down. So as things break down, they settle down. So if you put like 6 inches, it's actually going to come out like 3 inches or something. It's going to reduce way down than what you originally have. So just keep that in mind when it comes to layering. One thing that I've been doing is I really just think about, what kind of garden bed is this? Do I already have plants here? Or do I not have any plants here yet? Because if you have plants there, you need to cut holes in the cardboard to work around the current established plants. Because you don't want to smother them, obviously, but you also want to make sure the hole is big enough that water can get in there and get right at the root zone of the plant. So, especially with trees. Now, if you're trying to work around a tree, you might actually not want to use cardboard. You might actually want to use paper, newspaper, builder paper, something like that, where it's easier for air flow to go through that paper, because the paper is going to break down faster. So, that's one of my ways. Another way that I do it is with the newspaper or paper instead of the cardboard. So same thing. But instead of cardboard, it's newspaper. And with any of these methods, you want to layer multiple layers of cardboard, multiple layers of newspaper. If you don't put multiple layers of each, it's not going to do much for you. It's just not. You need at least 2 layers of cardboard and probably at least like 4 layers of newspaper, maybe even 7. I don't know. You need like a lot of newspaper. And I haven't done the newspaper thing as much, but you just know that you need more layers of newspaper. And another thing you can do with this method with the layering is if you don't have mulch and you don't have compost and you don't have any of that, and it's summertime and you're doing a lot of mowing because you still have a lot of lawn, you feel me? Another thing you can try is if you just want to smother temporarily an area around a shrub or something, just to keep the weeds down so you don't have to pull thousands of weeds. One thing you can try is put some newspaper layers down, and then on top of those newspaper layers, you can smother that lawn or those weeds with grass clippings. So just make sure that area is cut really low. Lay down your layers of newspaper, and then every time you cut your grass, make sure you use a bagger on your mower. Take that grass clipping bundle and throw it on that newspaper, okay? And it's going to be great for the soil. It's going to smother the weeds. Now, it's a temporary solution. Keep in mind, you got to keep reapplying those grass clippings, because not only does the newspaper break down pretty quick, but the grass clippings go away pretty quick. Now, I have seen grass clippings alone with no newspaper underneath them kill grass pretty well. As long as they're deep enough. You got to have a deep layer of grass clippings to kill the grass with just the grass clippings. So if you don't have a super thick layer because you have a small yard like me, you're going to have to keep applying the grass clippings every time you mow, and you're going to have to keep adding to that, and hopefully also have something underneath the grass clippings, like newspaper, to help build the layers. Now, that's not something I do to start a new bed. That's more of a way of me mitigating, I don't know if that's the right word, but reducing the weeds around stuff inside an already established bed. Because let's say my ground cover layer didn't take. That's what happened to me in this case. My ground cover layer didn't take in the specific spot around this specific shrub, so I put newspaper down, wet it really good, and then put grass clippings on top of it. Another thing you can do is just use what you have. Use what you have, people. If you have newspaper, use that. If you have cardboard, use that. If you don't have any of that, use your grass clippings. Basically, layer things up with what you have. If you have your own homemade compost, that is fantastic. You're going to want that. If you have your own homemade compost, use some of that, and on top of that, put leaves or grass clippings or whatever mulch you might have lying around. You can do some chop and drop. That's another thing I like to do. If it's a time of year where I have a lot of stuff I can prune, I'll use the prunings as a mulch. I'll just kind of chop them up with my hedge trimmers. I have like these little scissor hedge trimmer things. Cut the stuff up, all the stems, the leaves, and everything, cut it up. I don't try to cut it up super small because that would take forever. I just kind of chop it up a little bit, throw it over my other layers as a mulch. It works great. Does it last forever? Of course not. Different types of organic material last a different amount of time. So you'll have to do your own research because everybody's climate is different. Everybody has different weather and temperature conditions, and so humidity, heat, snow, cold, hot, all these things definitely affect the way things break down. So you kind of want to know how fast certain things break down with also your climate. But you know what? I did not go into this knowing all of that. I experimented. I tried different things, and at the end of the day, the main thing you need to know is there's a few different ways to reduce your lawn, and it's smothering the grass, digging up the grass, spraying it with herbicides. But I just don't want to spray anything, so I usually smother the grass or I dig it up. And so that first category was smothering the grass with cardboard, newspaper, compost, and mulch. Now, there's all kinds of different mulches. There's leaf mulch, there's chip, like wood chip mulch, There's, the arborist chips. You can try and get some free arborist chips delivered to you. If a tree's been cut down in your neighborhood, run over to them and be like, hey, can I have those chips? That's a nice, cost-effective way to get mulch for your garden. But, there's so many different ways to go about it. I've raked leaves at people's houses and brought those leaves home and used those leaves as mulch. Sometimes people rake them themselves and bring them to me. It just depends on the situation, how much of a hurry they are to get rid of their leaves. If I had, because I don't have a truck, so I only have a little car, so I can only take so many bags at a time. But really, the main thing you need to know about smothering your lawn is there's more than one way to do it. You can do it with all this organic matter, like I mentioned, or you can actually solarize it. And I put it in the same category as smothering because you're still putting something on top of the ground to kill the grass. But technically it's not smothering, it's solarizing. So what this involves is putting some kind of dark plastic down or clear plastic down over the lawn to kill the grass. The downside to this is it can kill a lot of the nice little insects and microbes that are in your soil, which can be bad for your soil. So keep that in mind. Sometimes smothering your lawn with the cardboard and the layers can be worrisome for the creatures as well, but I notice that they break down in a timely manner where I notice actually it seemingly drawing more creatures into the soil rather than killing them, but that's just my experience, and I have no way to quantify how many creatures are in the soil before versus how many were there after. All I know is I pull back the mulch and I'm like, whoa, there's a lot of creatures here that I didn't see before in my compacted clay. So experiment and do some research and do what's best for your garden and your area. Solarizing I have absolutely no experience with, so I'm not going to go in depth about solarizing. But again, it's really just getting a tarp that's dark, or getting a clear plastic, I don't know what it's called, but there's outdoor grade plastic you can get, maybe for like greenhouses. You're basically going to try to turn your lawn into like a low greenhouse and like kill the grass. It's very important to do something like this in the summer because you've got the most sun coverage, you've got the most UV rays happening. You want a bright sunny spot, you want hot summer sun, you want to kill that grass as fast as possible. But again, has a downside, could kill the microbes as well. So those are the two smothering methods, and within those methods I told you different methods within that. So let's move on to digging the sod up. There are sod cutters you can rent, supposedly, from the hardware store. I've never done it. You can use different kinds of spades, shovels. That's what I do. You can dig the soil up in the shape of the garden bed that you want, and you can flip it over in place, or you can dig up the grass in the spot that you want and move that grass, move the sod itself, to another garden space, or to another part of the yard, I should say. Like where you have patchy lawn, you're like, some of my lawn's dead. Well, make a new garden bed, take that grass that you had in that space and move it to a spot that's empty and bare. That's one way to do it. If you dig up your lawn instead of smothering it, you need to remember that nature abhors a vacuum. So what this means is when you are digging up your sod, you are most likely bringing up seeds to the surface. All kinds of seeds. Grass seeds, weed seeds, flower seeds. If you've ever had any flower seed or flowers go to seed, it's going to pull up all the seeds in the seed bank. Or not all, but you get what I'm saying. It's going to pull up seeds in the seed bank to the surface because now that sod is gone, so there's bare ground, but there's seeds in there that you cannot see, okay? They're hidden in there, and some of them are activated by the disturbance of the soil. So just you digging that sod up could create a disturbance, which, well, it does create a disturbance. And that disturbance could germinate some seeds. Some seeds love disturbance and will germinate so quick, like the snap of your finger. So you really need to have a plan if you're going to dig up your sod. Whether you dig it up and flip it over or you just dig it up. Because no matter which of those you do, there's bare ground. Notice I keep bringing up bare soil. So what is this? What is this with bare soil? Well, anytime I create a spot where there's bare soil, in my garden I notice it takes just days, if not a day, for things to start popping up in that soil. Little seedlings. What is that? Is that a weed? Is that a plant I want? Is it grass? That looks like a grass. Things are gonna pop up. And so when I say you need to have a plan, I mean you need to have a plan for what you're going to seed there. Please, if you are going to do the sod cutting method and you're not going to put any mulch down, you're not going to put any compost down, please, 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 if you're just going to have the bare earth, immediately plant some seeds into there. And what this does is, no, it does not eliminate your seed bank of the seeds you don't want. But what it does do is it puts seeds into the seed bank that you do want. So if you want to grow annuals, this is something you would do in the spring after the last frost date or the summer, okay, when it comes to annual seeds. So if you're going to do annual seeds, dig up the sod in the spring or the summer and seed the annuals immediately after you dig it up. I cannot reiterate this enough. And even if you do everything right, even if you dig all the sod up and you move it away, or you dig all the sod up and you flip it over and you seed in your annuals, you will still get some weeds that you have to pull out. It's just a fact of life. It's happened to me and it will happen to you. So keep in mind, the heavier you seeded this thing, the less you're going to have to pull weeds because there won't be as much room for the weeds to exist and there won't be as much light for the weeds to grow. Will you still get weeds? Yes. Yes, you will. But it's not about eliminating weeds, it's about reducing weeds. It's about reducing lawn, reducing weeds, and putting plants in that you want. Now, the reason I say to do annuals in spring and summer is because that's what will grow. If you want to do native perennials that need cold stratification, you're gonna need to do this in the fall, okay? So the reason for that is if it's a native plant that requires cold stratification, which not all native plants need cold stratification, but most of them do. If it's a native plant that needs cold stratification, you will need to do this in the fall because you need winter time to happen for a certain amount of weeks. You need a certain amount of cold weeks for those seeds to go, oh, I'm going to wake up as soon as it warms up because it's been cold such and such amount of weeks. How they're this smart and they're just seeds, the world may never know, but it's really cool. And it is a protection for these plants to germinate at the proper time. So it's nature. It is a smart thing in nature and it's really cool, but it does get frustrating sometimes because if you're trying to seed something at the wrong time and you're like, I can't get it to germinate, that's probably why, because it needs to be sown a different time of year than what you're doing. Another thing that can happen with seeds not germinating is you just need to seed more. Like maybe the germination rate is really low for that plant. So do a little bit of research on the specific plants you want to grow and follow those instructions because this is not a video going in depth about seeds. My main thing is you want to know what kind of plants you want to plant in that bed for the long term. And you want to know what kind of plants you want to plant in that bed for the short term. So what I like to do is if I'm starting in spring or summer, I immediately seed my annuals that I know are going to germinate super fast, like Mexican sunflower, regular sunflowers, celosia, marigold, those zinnias. Zinnias are a good one. Those things that germinate pretty quickly, sometimes days, sometimes weeks. They germinate so fast, and some of them grow so big that they shade out the soil really good, and you really, really want that for your temporary plants. I call them temporary plants. They're annuals. They're not going to live but just this year, this season, So, but think long term. What plants do you want to grow to be perennials? What native plants do you want? Sow those seeds in the fall. I kind of did something a little different this time. I made a new bed, and I dug up the grass. I almost said sand. I dug up the grass in this bed. I flipped it over. Hadn't done it this way before. Thought I'd try it. And I knew, since it was summer, it was like early June. It was past the frost date, quite a bit past the frost date, but it wasn't so late in summer that I wouldn't get anything out of it. So I was like, this is the perfect time to plant a lot of annuals. But I decided to experiment. I also seeded a lot of perennial plants that need cold stratification. And you may be like, well, you just told us earlier not to do that in the summer and to do that in the fall. Yes, I did. This is an experiment. I myself want to see if it's possible to seed in some plants, some perennial seeds that need cold stratification. I want to see if it's possible to go ahead and seed it in the summer, but with the annuals, so that the annuals can do their job in the summer. And then in the fall, it'll start to get cool, and then it'll turn into winter, and then they'll stratify because it'll get cold enough for several weeks, and then hopefully they'll come up in the spring. Is this for sure going to happen? No, I have no idea. I've never done it this way before, but I'm trying it because I remember seeding some larkspur one year. And I remember, that spring, because I seeded them in, fall, I think. And I remember that spring being they're not coming up. But then, the year after that, they came up. So I have this theory that maybe, just maybe, some plants need extra time. Maybe they need 2 winters to stratify or something. Am I an expert? No, I'm not. I don't know what I'm talking about. So really, I'm just experimenting, and I basically just throw a bunch of annual seeds out, perennial seeds out, and I just gently push them into the soil so that they make soil contact. And then if there's something like sunflower seeds, I cover them with grates. Okay, cover them with these old refrigerator grates that are no longer in use. And my mom taught me that skill. And I put them over those because if you don't, squirrels will dig them up, birds will dig them up, and sometimes the birds may still be able to peck some of your sunflower seeds out of the ground through the grate, but it's still a really good method to keep most of your seeds in the ground and protected from wildlife, because there are certain plants, sunflowers especially, where you put the seeds in the ground and something will immediately come looking for those seeds. They can smell them a mile away. Okay, I don't know how far away they can smell them, but it seems like really far. So those are my tips for that. And I hope that was helpful. I think I went over pretty much everything that I know so far. I'll keep you guys updated on the new garden space where I've done the annuals and the perennials in the summer, because I'm super curious how that's going to turn out. A common milkweed plant just popped its little head right up in there, because you know how common milkweed just spreads like wildfire, right? So, hey, at least I know I'm going to have common milkweed in that bed, and I won't have to worry about not having at least something for the wildlife. But yeah, guys, comment down below what your methods are, what your tips are, and thank you so much for watching this video. I will see you in the next one. To support the channel, like the video, comment, and subscribe. You can also support my work by buying art from me at macylou.com. Thanks for watching!